So in a previous video discussing Blink-182, James and I were starting to get into a debate about what's gone on with Tom DeLonge's voice.
What happened to Tom DeLonge's voice? Was that even him?
He sounds exactly like he did on the last album and the albums before that. The difference is
Enema of the State.
There's a lot. Yeah.
What?
But for me, that argument didn't hold water because, to be totally honest, I kind of fell off of listening to Blink-182 after Enema of the State. I heard the I Miss You song, which we joked about in the video. But other than that, I have no clue what they've been doing for the last 20 some odd years. So we're here today to talk about this issue again. Has Tom DeLonge's voice fundamentally changed? I argue yes. Anthony argues no.
I've listened to a lot of Blink-182 through the years. James, probably not as much. If we were going to argue about Greg Graffin's voice or maybe even Fat Mike's voice, I would say that he's able to hold a bucket of water there. However, he's a little out on this one.
I'm out of my depth.
Without further ado, state your case, Mr. James.
Well, first I want to say I agree with you. Your knowledge of Blink-182 far surpasses my own. I would argue that my lack of awareness of what they've done over the last 2 decades is actually an asset for my argument, which is that Tom DeLonge has lost something fundamentally interesting about his voice. When I heard the first few seconds of the new song Edging, my first thought was, what the hell happened to him?
I ain't that cool, little in the head. They'll be hanging me quick when I'm back from the dead.
At first, I didn't even know it was Tom DeLonge singing. And then I realized who I'm looking at on the video. It was like shock.
It was shock.
It was shock because, I mean, so like I said in the previous video, so my least favorite Blink-182 song used to be All the Small Things. I think both it's the structure of that song. It's like pure pop punk kind of schlock. We even as a band would kind of play around with it, when we would practice and stuff. It's super easy to play, but I found his voice just kind of annoying. It's got that whiny kind of high-pitched sound, but for all of that, it's super unique. There's so many generic punk guys who you can hear, and they all sound kind of generic and interchangeable. Tom DeLonge's voice was unique, even though I found it frustrating on Enema. Maybe not so much on Dude Ranch, but definitely on Enema.
All the small things.
But after hearing Edging, I immediately thought I would prefer listening to All the Small Things for his voice, because it's gotten so less distinctive on Edging.
So listening back to Edging, because you threw a few videos from Enema of the State, and what cracks me up about you going from Enema of the State to I Miss You is that there's a whole nother album in there possibly 2 albums in there. So you missed Take Off Your Pants and Jacket.
Okay.
Which I know you know songs off of that.
I would have assumed that I Miss You was on that album, actually. I don't even know.
No,
I don't know the discography.
It's on there. I believe it's on their self-titled Blink-182 album. I could be wrong on that. Okay. It's been a minute since I've looked at their catalog as well, but I
trust you. I trust you.
Seeing Blink-182 live, neither one of them, Mark Hoppus or I should say, Tom DeLonge, strong singers. They're musically, they're very fantastic. Their singing was mediocre at best, but I expect that with them because all their albums, with the exception, Dude Ranch didn't sound as produced, or Buddha, I think it was Buddha and Cheshire Cat, which were similar. But all the way back to Edging now, there's a distortion. There's like a slight distortion on both their voices, and Tom DeLonge is not singing in that whiny, high pitch frequency that he normally sings in. He maybe has to do with age, maybe it just has to do with the way they wrote the song. And my argument is I'm not 100% sure that this is the song. Yeah. Like, I think that maybe they wrote the song just to put a song out there, say, hey, Tom's back, we're working on an album, here's a sneak peek of the future. Not saying that it's going to be as bad or as good as we may think that song is. We know that they have a lot more juice and a lot more talent in the tank to make something better than that. I think that's what we all agreed on when we talked about the song at the end of the day. But the voice listening to stuff from End of the State and stuff from and the song Etching, it does sound different in the sense that he's not singing in the same key.
Yeah.
It's actually Mark Hoppus that's singing higher and Tom DeLonge that's singing lower, which usually it's the opposite.
Yeah.
So,
well, it was funny to me because so they have a few songs where they alternate, and you mentioned in the video Anthem, which at the time I didn't remember what song that was, but I actually agree with you. Anthem is my favorite song off of Enema of the State as well. But there's a part in there where they kind of do a duet. One sings one part, one sings the other, and their voices sound so dramatically different. In Edging, they do something similar at the end of the song, but their voices sound much, much more similar. I actually asked I asked Nate, one of the other people on our channel, to listen to it, and I didn't say anything about the argument. I just said, listen to these two songs and tell me what you think. And his initial response was, is that the guy that they got to replace Mark Hoppus singing? He knew it was Blink-182, but he didn't even know it was Mark Hoppus when he first heard it, because to me, he sounds so different.
you mean Tom DeLonge?
Sorry, I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry. No, Mark, yeah, you're right. Mark Hoppus, to me, sounds very similar to the way he did going way back. But Tom DeLonge sounds so different. Now, I have a question for you, though. I was thinking about this.
Okay.
I don't really remember Tom DeLonge's voice prior to Enema of the State. I listened to Dude Ranch, and I've listened to Cheshire Cat, and John brought up M&M's, and I remember a lot of the songs from those albums. But I don't remember that I ever noticed his voice was that distinctive back then. I'm wondering if it was like a production thing on Enema of the State, because that was their breakthrough album, wasn't it? Like that was the album.
Well, Dude Ranch is what. To me,
Dude Ranch put them on the
was
map.
Their breakthrough.
But like they didn't go on TRL for Dude Ranch. Like Enema of the State, they were everywhere.
Oh yeah. Okay.
But I as like a major label debut, I'm wondering if maybe production had to do with that they realized his voice is so distinct that they went crazy with making it unique. I don't know. For someone who hasn't listened to them in 2 decades, it sounds to me
Not 2 decades. It feels like 2 decades. It's been
when was Enema of the State?
Was that 2 decades ago? Am I that old?
Get this, the release date, June 1st, 1999 for Enema of the State.
No way.
I'm reading it off Google. Look
way.
it up. Look it up on your
No
Google. I'm
way.
reading Enema of the State studio album by Blink-182.
No way.
June 1st,
I believe
1999
you.
on MCA Records. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, so I haven't been into them for 24 years.
I haven't been into them since Tom DeLonge quit. And what's funny is I think vocally he's the weakest. Well, I shouldn't say weakest. Tom DeLonge's not my favorite from the band.
Sure.
To be quite honest with you, I think that they all Blink-182 without Tom DeLonge was never good to me. Going back to that video, you mentioned something about Travis Barker's drumming being weak on it, which I'll never say
weak,
drumming's
just
weak.
boring.
In the pocket. Well, Travis Barker,
for Travis Barker, boring.
I think again, though, I think they just threw a song together and said, "Let's release this to debut Tom DeLonge back in the band," and that's what they're doing. As far as Tom DeLonge's voice, to me, he sounds exactly the same. I think that they started. Maybe it's just as they're getting older, they've started to put a little bit more compression or limiting the voices a little bit, and they are starting to kind of. Mark Hoppus used to be here and Tom DeLonge used to be here, and I think they're kind of going like this now. Like
I agree.
You said that they're starting to kind of sound similar. I do hear the similarity, but the similarity that I'm hearing isn't so much the voice, it's the effect on the voice. Because I could still tell the distinct difference between Mark Hoppus and Tom DeLonge.
Well, I can hear it too.
That just may be because of how much I've listened to him.
But I mean, I can hear it too once I'm listening to it. But like, for me, DeLonge does not sound nearly as interesting as he did back on Enema of the State. Whatever they've done to him, that the quality of his voice is just not as interesting. And like you said, this song doesn't seem to be as interesting. But again, I still don't think it's. I don't think it's. I said it's not in the top 50. I think it's probably not even the top like 65, 75%. It's a straightforward, solid song, but it doesn't compare with some of their earlier hits. And like I said, it's funny because I used to say I hated all the small things, and I thought that it was his voice that drove me nuts. But I miss his whiny 20-something voice. I can't believe I'm saying this.
We're all getting old, man.
I guess so.
How old were you in 1999?
I would have been 18. So yeah.
No, 17.
17 or 18, yeah, somewhere in there.
I turned, hold on. I turned 18 in 1999 because I graduated high school in 2000. So 99 into 2000 was my last year of high school. Yes, everybody on the internet, I've been out of school for 23 years.
Well, you couldn't believe this album was from '99. But I'm with you. Like, where has the time gone? We are old guys critiquing old guys playing music.